Hello, so I'm Rose Diamond from Tribe in Transition, and today I have with me Claire Barton, who is a sound healer and a singer-songwriter and an author. And Claire, this is part of a series I'm doing about exploring the nature of our soul work, and I'm particularly interested in talking with you about healing and creativity and how that's kind of shown up in your work. Sounds like all your work is to do with healing and creativity. So, should we start with the sound healing? Because I'm sure a lot of people won't be familiar with what that is. You want to just say a little bit about, what happens, what you do in a sound healing session, and how it heals?
Okay. So sound healing is when you're it's the therapeutic use of sound for the intention of healing and bringing balance. And it's very interesting because, like, we all have experiences with music that we find it uplifting, or some music makes us sad, or it really plays with our emotions. So we can see how powerful it is. But when we are using sound healing, we're using it, like, our intention is like really, really important. So the intention is to really work with the person with what they need at that moment, and it's for their highest good. So there's no real agenda as such when we're sound healing. I mean, somebody can come and they can say, "Oh, I have a broken heart," or "I have a sore leg," but actually in the actual session, I never force something, because sometimes someone could come with a broken heart, but they might, they might not be ready to just kind of let go of that or open up. So we set that intention at the start, that it's for the person's highest good. So it's only what they're able and willing to give in that moment is what's going to come. So it's very co-creative, insofar as the person who's looking for the healing shows up and they present themselves, and then it'll be at whatever level, spiritually, emotionally, physically, that they're kind of in a place to have healing happen. And really all that's needed is an openness, um and what needs to happen will happen. And in the session there's different modalities, or there's different processes we do. We can balance the chakras using sound. um we can use intervals, so that's like where you've got two different notes together. So if you think of a song that's in harmony, you'll have these lovely harmonies. Those two notes together will have a particular effect. Sometimes then we have notes that are very close together, so they're kind of jarring. They can be really good for unblocking emotions, and they can be really good for healing as well. And there's been some research done showing that those kind of tones can break up cancer cells, in fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a lot of different things that happen in the session, but at its most basic, it's really a space. It's about creating a space where you can come and just relax. Just, you don't have to do anything, and you don't have to, like, you don't have to tell me your problems if you don't want to. I'm very happy to listen. I'm very happy to talk, and that sometimes is really part of it. But in its essence, it's not necessary at all. And that's what I really love about sound, is that you could just come in and say nothing, and still, whatever, I'll be guided to use whatever sounds are needed in that moment, and you will feel things happening, and sometimes they'll be unexpected. So there's a kind of like a magic in that. No two sessions are quite the same.
Mm.
um, So yes, you asked me what a session kind of looks like as well. So I have a treatment table, so you can lie on the treatment table, you get covered in blankets, and you can go to sleep if you like. You're not required to do anything really. You know, it's just
Mm.
to have it as time out and relax. And when we use the sounds, they slow your brain waves down, so you can go into this really relaxed state. So sometimes people, it just pushes them over the edge and they fall asleep, which is absolutely fine. The healing still happens. But sometimes people will just be, they'll still be conscious. I mean, to me, I can hear their breathing change. Sometimes they'll be snoring, but they'll actually be still awake. So
Mm.
it's that really, really kind of deep meditative space, and time kind of stretches out. And yeah, so the sound then will be, I'll give sound for maybe the sound part of the session is usually about an hour, but it's got lots of silences in there as well. So we do some sound, then there's silence, so that you can integrate that
Mm.
that sound. And the way it works is by resonance. So if you imagine an instrument and the instrument's out of tune, that is kind of like when our bodies are out of tune, we've got disease and disharmony, and we're just not quite right. We're not quite in tune. And what we do is we offer the note, the correct note, for want of a better word. And when we hear that note, it brings our body back in tune, because our body wants to go towards healing. And it's the resonance. And the how it actually happens is by a process called entrainment. And we see this in nature a lot. It's when you see a big flock of starlings and they're all flying together, um, and they're almost like one big organism, and they're just moving, and it's all just really magical looking. But it's basically it's about energy. So the birds use less energy when they're all moving together as a unit. The
Mm.
same phenomenon happens. There's been an experiment done with grandfather clocks, with pendulums. So they put a room full of clocks together and they're all going at different times. But within a few hours, they'll all be going together. They'll entrain.
Mm.
So there'll be one clock that is more powerful, and all the others will entrain to that, because it uses less energy in the system for everything to be harmonious. So
Mm.
harmony is like the natural way to be. So that's how the sound actually works. So when you're giving sound, you're kind of coaxing the different systems in the body back, into alignment.
Beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm feeling very relaxed just listening to you actually. And there's, I don't know if you've noticed, there's been an absolutely beautiful bird. There it is, singing the
Yeah,
most gorgeous harmony. It's like seems to be
yeah,
very fitting to what we're
yeah.
talking about.
It's a wren.
Oh,
It's a
it's
wren, and
beautiful.
it's really nice because when I'm at home, and I'm on holidays at the moment, but when I'm at home, there's a wren quite often sings
Mm.
outside. And usually, during a session, any of the sounds or anything that kind of happens in a session usually is kind of like part of the session as well. So um, I do find as well that, like, I don't always hear the wren singing,
Mm.
and like, while I have heard the wren singing when I've been on holidays, this is the closest it's and the loudest it's been. So it's a
Mm.
really nice reminder. um i love I love wrens.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder if the wren has any particular meaning attached to it, don't know.
Well, the thing about the wren, I've written a poem about the wren. The wren is called the king of all birds, but it's one of the smallest birds we have in Ireland. And the thing that inspires me about the wren is that his confidence. So he has the loudest, as you can hear, has
Mm.
this big, huge, loud voice, and yet he's this tiny little bird. and he's not in the slightest put off by his size. He never feels insignificant. He is singing his song. They have this position when they're singing, they stick their chests out and they have their tail cocked, and he's just pours forth his song.
Mm.
And to me, that message is very significant, because sometimes I think we can feel really small and that it's not worth doing something, or we're not enough.
Mm.
And me, the message of the wren is we are enough, and sure, aren't we grand? What's the problem?
Yeah, it's just I'm kind of feeling a bit, shivers down my body, because with the wren showing up and it being so significant to you, and that's part of the sort of magic of healing, isn't it? When you're talking about that intentionality, you set an intention, and then somehow that kind of plugs us into the universe. It plugs us into the
Yeah.
universal intelligence. And tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what you're saying is that when you're doing the sound healing, you're bringing through that by intuition, that universal intelligence. Is that how
Yes.
you understand it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like I'm a channel for the sounds that come through.
Yeah.
I don't I kind of step out of the way, and I don't decide what I'm going to do. So might have a rough plan of what I'm going to do, but quite often it changes. And sometimes I feel, oh, I must do something now, and it feels almost counterintuitive.
Mm.
Like sometimes I feel, oh, I must play the gong really quietly. And sometimes in my head I think I'll play the gong really quietly, but it's like, no, I find myself really going loud, and it's like, okay, this is what's needed, and it's just
Mm.
that trust.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you empty yourself, and you kind of make yourself an instrument in a way.
Yes, yes, in a way, and it's just really allowing. And I also, with my sound healing, I like to combine angel card readings, because I love angels, and I've been very interested in angels for a long time. And in the last few years, I've done courses and I do card readings, and I love to combine the two, because what I've noticed when I was offering them separately, I noticed that people were quite polarized. A lot of people wanted sound healing and they weren't interested in cards, which is kind of fine that way around.
Mm.
But a lot of people who wanted readings were very focused. And I think when people come for a reading, sometimes they're like, there's a particular situation in their lives and they're very polarized. They know exactly what they want to happen and what they want you to tell them.
Mm.
And quite often, um, in life, I suppose that's not actually what you're going to tell them,
Mm.
or what they need to hear. And I find that when we do the sound healing, it just relaxes people. And I found that even people who had come with a question after the sound healing, when I said, would you like to ask your question, or would you just like to hear what the angels would like you to know? Quite often they will just say, I'd just like to hear what the angels would like me to know. And it's really nice then, because whatever comes through is they're able to hear it.
Mm.
um, and it's not like the messages are always very gentle and very empowering, but it's just that it's really nice when a message can come and it can kind of land with the person. So even if they need to take it away and kind of think about it afterwards, there's an openness there. And it also ties in, there'll be areas that will come up when I'm doing a scan of the body, and I might find imbalances in particular areas. The cards will quite often give us a bit of insight into that. So that's really quite nice as well, that they work really nicely together.
Yeah. I'm thinking that there are certain forms of healing, more the sort of psychotherapeutic healing, that where people need to be actively engaged and kind of and sort of understand what's going on. But with this, it reminds me more of um, bodywork therapies or Reiki and those kind of therapies where you're just really very receptive and you don't even know what's being healed, or you don't actually have to register things with your conscious mind. It's just you're kind of in what you're saying, a deep state of relaxation, and the healing is happening in this case with the sound healing through the resonance, which is, yeah, it's very beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I really like about it as well, because it's not like, sometimes I think when we, especially if hard things have happened to us and we talk about them, sometimes when we talk about them, we're just churning up the feelings and the hurt and the anger and all those emotions, and we're stuck in it and we can't get out of it. And sometimes, I mean, sometimes it's great. You do need to talk about things and you do need to share it with somebody, and that's great as well. But there come a stage when you can't move on from that, um, and you're in your head, and the sound just cuts through that. So, and it is very experiential. So you can feel yourself when there's shifts in your body,
Yes.
and it's a very spiritual thing as well. And I suppose that's something that um, I like about it as well. It's kind of, it's difficult to talk about or explain, but it's very experiential.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Well, you're doing a great job of talking about it and explaining. I'm thinking though, to have those skills that you have, which is basically to get yourself out of the way and just kind of empty yourself and listen deeply and trust. Those are, I see those as all as qualities which many of us are needing to develop. And wondering how did you develop those qualities? What brought you to sound healing, and what enables you to be able to do that? Because I see that as quite an amazing skill set that you have.
Mhm. Well, I suppose I'm coming from a place of loving singing, and singing has always been what I loved to do. Um, and then for many years, I didn't really sing at all. And when I started singing again, I realized how precious it was to me. And I started attending lots of different singing workshops where we learned harmony singing. And I love singing with other people. I love singing harmonies. But then I started having spiritual experiences in normal singing workshops. And I couldn't quite work out what was happening. Like, why was this happening? I mean, it was lovely, but it was unexpected. And it was like a little puzzle that gradually I was getting more answers to. And I attended a singing workshop one day, but it was done by a singer songwriter who also used to channel angels. So she had the spiritual side as well. And it suddenly kind of clicked that actually singing is spiritual. And that was why I was having these experiences. And it was because when you're singing, it's it's a really good reflection of your authentic self, of the real person. And growing up, I would have been very shy and introverted, and I was a people pleaser. I never really said what was on my mind. I always kind of went with the flow and was very easygoing, but on the inside, i just I just felt like I didn't have a voice and I couldn't really express myself. But whenever I sang, I was just me, and there was a great freedom in that. And I always felt really myself when I was singing, and I felt grounded and connected. But I suppose I didn't have those words on it until I started going to these workshops. Um, and then I met a friend of mine. She started doing Chloe Goodchild's naked voice work, um, Elizabeth Ewing, and she's in West Cork. And I started going to her workshops. And again, we were exploring our voices and toning together, and chanting. And I just found it so, like, for years when I tried meditating or people were doing guided visualizations, I couldn't, I couldn't see what they were doing. I remember one time I knew I was having, real difficulty when somebody said, imagine you're surrounded with white light, and I couldn't see the color white. I was just really forcing my brain to try and see this white, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Of course I know what white is, but I couldn't see it. And I just found all these visualizations, which is so difficult. But with sound, and when I discovered chanting, I'll be, chanting in Sanskrit, and I wouldn't necessarily know what every word meant. But within minutes, I could feel myself floating off, and I was just in totally deep meditation. So for me, it's really sound that can get me there. And then I started going to this wonderful camp, a retreat camp with drumming and singing and all different workshops called Earth Song, and that's in Ireland as well. And there was a lady there called Chris Blanchard, and she did gong bath. That was my first time going to a gong bath. And again, I'd be transported to God knows where. And she did workshops as well, where she taught us how to do sound healing on each other and did little things. And it was very interesting that how easy it was. I thought, oh, it'd be so difficult. And yet, she gave us some very simple instructions, and we would be sounding to each other. And again, you could feel it, the effect. And that was so empowering, because it made me realize this is innate in all of us, and that we can use the power of sound, and all we needed was to have a pure heart and be have the highest intention for that person. So then Chris was offering to teach she's a tutor with the College of Sound Healing in the UK. So when she did that, then this is after a few years of going to her workshops every year at the summer camp, I signed up. So I did my training with the College of Sound Healing. So yeah, it was a wonderful training, and we just covered all those different aspects of sound. And again, it was a very experiential course. Yeah, so that's the long answer.
Yeah, but what I'm getting from that, what you're saying, is that it was something that sort of grew in you organically. It was coming from the inside. It was something that kind of developed over. You just followed your interest. You followed your own creative impulse. And I'm thinking about what you were saying about you were shy, and singing gave you a voice. And I've heard that several times, of people who have had stammers, when they actually sing, they can sing without any interruption as soon as they start. So it's like you kind of step back into your personality, and that personality is unconfident, but when you sing, something bigger than you comes through. And it's the same when I write, and I know you're a writer as well, but I find that's why I love writing so much. That's at its best, when I'm kind of bringing through inspiration, it's like I feel like I'm there's something much bigger than me at play, and that my job as a writer is to somehow find a form for that, and it's kind of harder in a way with words, because words are so limiting. I'm hearing it's a different process with the sound healing, because you're following, it's the same sort of principle, really, of kind of opening ourselves to some higher inspiration that wants to come through us, and then we use our skills to find a way to bring that into the world in a way that others can receive it. And that's the place where I feel that the healing and the creativity really intertwine, that they're kind of you can't really separate them. Our own growth towards authenticity, and our own and to being more confident, and the Ren, with the confidence that comes through following our passion. And at the same time, a lot of the time when we do that, we actually have a positive, because we're raising our own vibration, that we then have a positive effect on others. So there's this beautiful kind of intertwining of when we do what's best for us, we that's when we make our best contribution to others. And
yes, and I agree as well. What you were saying about the writing is that it is similar to the sound healing insofar as you are opening up And then there's the channels of creativity come down. So as you're saying, like you're looking for the words, but it's a real co-creation, because the inspiration is coming, but you're going to capture it in your way. So it still has your essence, and there'll be the way you say things, and it'll be still uniquely you.
Mm.
And yet it's not all you, because there is that inspiration from higher realms or wherever it comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's that sense of uniqueness, that the more we learn to express ourselves in whatever way that we are, we're gifted, that the more unique we become in a way. But that's, we're also, I find anyway, that the more open to that higher intelligence. For me, that's been a long journey over a lifetime. It's sort of learning that understanding what that process is and how I can be more skilled at it. And I just find that one of the most fascinating parts of life, and it's a lifelong journey. And I guess that's what I mean by soul work. I don't know if those words have meaning for you, if you would say that sound healing is your soul work, or an aspect of your soul work.
Yeah, no, it really does feel like a vocation almost. And when I'm doing sound healing, I feel like I can be my best my best self almost. Um, so yeah, I really love doing it. And I love being of service, but it's really nice to be of service in a way that flows really easily.
Mm.
Because I think maybe before I kind of thought if you were helping people, it had to be really hard, or
Mm.
whereas it's really nice when you're doing something that kind of comes easily in some ways, and you're just flowing with it. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, so I always feel really energized after doing healings. Um, it just it really feeds me as well.
Yes, that's what's so beautiful about it, isn't it? It sort of heals and feel and uplifts you as a practitioner, as well as helping somebody else. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
And part of I'm calling this exploration the nature of our soul work, because it seems to me that when we do connect with that real authentic gift that we have, and it's different for each one of us, that we are in a way connecting with nature, whether that nature is the nature of the earth, with the birds or whatever, or whether that nature is the bigger interconnectedness of the cosmos. And that our soul work seems to me to be in the doorway into being connected with something much bigger than ourselves.
I think so, because I think when we're doing our soul work, we're coming into alignment with ourselves.
Mm.
Um, and I guess yes, you can look at it on all different levels, but because we're actually in physical beings, and we're on the earth, it's actually easy for us in some ways. If we connect to the earth, then I think we can expand spiritually.
Mm.
So I was just thinking about it the other day. I was doing a card reading for myself, and it just suddenly came to me that part of the reason why we do come into the physical is so that we can bring energy down from the cosmos and earth it. So we're actually like channels, all of us, when we're here. And that's like part of maybe the spiritual ecosystem of the earth.
Yeah.
And I think, I suppose, the challenge for us is that in our lives we become so disconnected from the earth, from the rhythms of the earth, from the moon cycles, from the seasons, because we're indoors. It's like out of sight, out of mind. So in my life, I'm really consciously trying to come back to a place where, I mean, I love spending time in nature, but it falls off so easily when I get overwhelmed or when life happens, and then in my house, or I'm just head down and I'm in my head.
Mm.
And I just find that being inside for me puts me in my head. And when I go outside, everything just falls away. But
Mm.
sometimes it's hard to actually push myself out the door
Mm.
to get there. And I think that in some ways, like, life has become hard for us because, you know, it's almost ludicrous that you would plan time in nature because, you know, looking back in the past, we were a part of nature, and when we still are part of nature, we're just a little bit estranged slightly, but we basically still are really part of everything. So it's just a kind of a remembering of that. um and if we were living more natural lives, we wouldn't be consciously exercising or spending time in nature. We'd just be, you know, you're going somewhere, so you're walking, or, you know, you're just doing your thing, and you'd be outside.
Mm.
And you wouldn't have to be putting this special time in, you know, it's all like that's artificial as well. But I guess that's what we have to do at the moment, as we're kind of maybe transitioning to kind of seeing where we are on the planet and the damage that we've done, and
Mm.
how in some ways it actually can be so easy to be in tune, you know, if we actually just go outside and start looking around us and appreciating nature. It's actually very easy, you know, you just leave it alone and it'll probably be fine.
I've
So
totally, yeah,
quite
totally,
often there's not a lot to do, more not doing things, you know. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I totally relate to everything you're saying about, I live in a beautiful place and I just step out the door and I immediately feel connected with something much bigger and all the thoughts go away. But like you saying, I can also sort of get stuck in my head inside and it's almost difficult to get out the door. And and you and I are both sort of relatively conscious beings on this path. So it seems to me that the healing that we're talking about, whatever channel it comes through, is more than healing you or me or who. It is actually also, as you're saying, bringing in that higher vibrational energy into the earth, because we've we've made such a terrible mess of our beautiful, beautiful planet, and we're at this kind of transition time at the moment. But it's, yeah, that's that sense of that we, over the centuries, we've become very disconnected from our true nature and from the earth, and and from the cosmos, really. And that we're now finding our way back to remembering and reconnecting. And I think our soul work is whatever it is that enables us to make those connections and deepen our understanding of what it means to be human. I think soul work is about, we are actually souls here on earth to have a human experience and to remember, to know, find out, what it means to be human. So thank
Yeah,
you very
thank
much.
you. So talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.